With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Maxi S, who writes, "Hey, John and crew." Well, hello, Maxi. How you doing? Where did I lost my spot? Now is a good time. I lost my spot for a second. Now is a good time to get educated about U.S. race relations. It's true. Now is a good time to do that. African-American history and the civil rights movement specifically. Which are your favorite movies covering these subjects? I highly recommend Mississippi Burning, Malcolm X, 12 Years a Slave, and Amistad for starters. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, listen, one of the beautiful things about movies is that movies speak directly to our experience, right? They speak directly to our world. Sometimes they speak about the way we wish the world could be, the way the world could be. A lot of times it speaks to the way the world is through the eyes of the filmmaker and the person telling the story. And I think that's one of the many, many reasons why movies are so valuable. And you're right. There's never been a more applicable time for people to catch up on some stories being told through the lens of those storytellers, to hear stories like this. Now, let me preface this by saying this, all right? In talking about asking me what movies do I think are the ones people should start with, keep in mind, even by white guy standards, I am a pasty white Canadian Italian boy, right? First of all, I'm Canadian, so I'm not even American. I'm Canadian. So, John, what are the most important American films about race relations? You're going to ask a Canadian white guy that? Okay, let's go there. So understand that I am, even by Canadian and white guy standards, I am a pasty white Canadian Italian dude. Asking me, it's like asking me, John, what is the most authentic Cuban cuisine? I don't know. I can't tell you what is the most authentic Cuban cuisine because I'm not a Cuban cuisine expert and I'm not Cuban. But what I can tell you is about my experiences with Cuban cuisine that made me appreciate Cuban cuisine. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm no expert on Cuban cuisine. I'm not Cuban. I can't tell you what is the most authentic Cuban cuisine in Los Angeles, but I can tell you about a couple of my experiences that made an impact on me and that I appreciated. So understand that when I start listing off some movies here that, you know, I made a joke to a friend of mine once when we came out of watching Coco, the Pixar film Coco. And I said, man, it really felt like authentic Mexican culture. But keep in mind, I know as much about authentic Mexican culture as Taco Bell knows about authentic Mexican cuisine. So keep that in mind. So I'm telling you this from my perspective. I'm just going to tell you the movies that, to me, on the issues of civil rights, race relations, all that kind of stuff, I'm just going to tell you the movies to me that made an impact on me. All right. There are going to be people who are watching this who say, well, John, that one's not really authentic to the real life. Okay, I accept that. I'm just saying these are the ones that made an impact on me. So with all those asterisks there, let me get started on a couple of films that really made an impact on me. And the one I'm going to start with is kind of a softball one. At least I always thought it was. And that's Remember the Titans. Now, Remember the Titans doesn't have a lot of subtlety. Remember the Titans really tells its story in the form of a parable, really. And parable storytelling really is just putting everything right up front, right? Making obvious allegories and things like that to get the point across. And so I've always liked Remember the Titans, but I've always considered it, you know, in these types of films that we're talking about now, as more of a softball one. Until about 2 or 3 months ago, Ann and I sat down one night, you know, and we just had the rest of the evening free, and we decided to pop on a movie, and we decided to pop on Remember the Titans. And it still very much is more parable-like storytelling, but I found it incredibly profound. Because again, it does what a movie like this needs to do. It makes me, there's an empathy to the movie. It makes somebody like me sit down and try to look at the story through another person's eyes. And whether how true it is, authentic it is, and all that kind of stuff, I can't speak to that. All I can say is that it truly made an impact on me. Not just when I first saw it, but then when I revisited it years later. And by the way, this movie, you forget how stacked this cast is, right? Well, of course, we know Denzel, we know Will Patton. But besides Denzel and Will Patton, Ryan Hurst Who's Ryan Hurst? Oh, he was only my favorite character on one of my favorite shows. He was Ope on Sons of Anarchy. I had totally forgotten that he was in this movie. Donald Faison is in this movie. I had totally forgotten that Donald Faison was in this. Oh, and by the way, Will Patton's daughter, yeah, the cheerleader from Heroes, Hayden Panettiere. I totally forgot she was. Well, actually, no, I didn't forget. I never knew that little girl was the cheerleader from Heroes. I never knew that. Kate Bosworth was in there. Ryan Gosling was in there. This movie was stacked, like top to bottom. So out of the three I'm going to mention, the first one I'm going to mention here is Remember the Titans. Now, I also want to mention here, you mentioned a couple of my favorites, Mississippi Burning, particularly Amistad. I'm not going to put Amistad on my list because it's Amistad, while maybe my favorite Steven Spielberg film, Amistad is so removed from us in time that I think some people will watch it and disassociate the issues going on in it with today's world. So I'm not going to include that one, even though it's probably my favorite film on this list, but I'm probably not going to include it on that one for now, just so you know, because people say, John, you're always talking about Amistad. Why isn't Amistad in this list? That's why. But God, I love Amistad. Okay. Let's move on to the next one I'm going to talk about. This one is one I was late to the party to. I only saw it about a year ago. I think it was about a year ago, the first time that I watched it. It's narrated by Samuel L. Jackson, based on the writings of James Baldwin. As kind of a completed memoir of a work he was working on at the time. But it's called I Am Not Your Negro. I don't know about you, but whether we're talking about sports or whether you're talking about the environment or whether you're talking about parenthood or whether you're talking about hockey or whether you're talking about computers, there's whatever topic or subject you're talking about. When I hear somebody who is incredibly articulate and is an extremely good communicator, it takes that, I don't know, there's something about that drags me down into the deeper waters with it. You know, when it's being conveyed by somebody who's incredibly a great orator, somebody who's got great communication skills, blah, blah, blah. And the footage of James Baldwin in this is powerful. I remember the first trailer I ever saw for I Am Not Your Negro. It's brilliant because it starts with a very simple statement that is also incredibly profound. And it starts with this old footage of James Baldwin saying, you know, give me liberty or give me death. When a white person in America says that, people stand and cheer and applaud. When a black man says it in America, people vilify him. I'm paraphrasing, but people vilify him. They want to make an example out of that black man to make sure nobody else does what he just did. And I remember the very first time I saw that trailer and just it opened with that. It's a very simple saying. It almost sounds like something maybe you find in a Chinese fortune cookie. You know, give me liberty, give me death. When a white man says it, people stand and applaud. When a black guy says it, people get their backs up. But the way he communicated, I remember me as a Canadian dude listening to that and going, that's incredibly simple, yet incredibly profound. And that's really something that this movie hits you with multiple times as you're watching it. Wow, that was incredibly simple, yet incredibly profound. There is a depth to the simplicity of it. Because it seems so simple, maybe it's something we ignored before. But when somebody with these type of articulation skills says it, it takes it to a whole new level of meaning. And suddenly you found yourself sitting there watching the movie and you're being impacted by it. You're being seriously impacted by it. So the first one I wanted to mention was Remember the Titans. The second one, and these are in no particular order, the second one I wanted to mention is I Am Not Your Negro. If you have not checked that one out, by all means, please do. The third one I want to mention that made an impact on me is not going to be on many people's lists. It's not going to be on many. I'll tell you right now, it is not going to be on a lot of people's lists. But this is a movie to me that when I walked out of a press screening, I was on the studio lot in one of their screening rooms when I first watched this movie. And I stepped outside and I'm just standing in the middle of like this huge studio lot in Hollywood. And I pulled out my phone and I posted onto Facebook. I said, I couldn't tell people what movie I'd just seen yet. there was embargo, but I wrote out, I just watched a movie that reminds me about why I love the movies. And that movie for me is the 2011 Tate Taylor film, The Help, led by 5 powerhouse actresses and performances, particularly led by Octavia Spencer and Viola Davis. But it's got Emma Stone, Octavia Spencer, Viola Davis. It's got Bryce Dallas Howard, who is now one of the directors of Mandalorian. And that was awesome. And it was my first real introduction to Jessica Chastain. Like 5 powerhouse lead performances in that. It was just, and of course, Academy Award winner Allison Janney was in there as well, playing Emma Stone's mother. She was a great character in it. It was a movie to me that, because of it didn't tell the, how do I put this? The movie did not tell the story of its subject matter through the eyes of high-profile, recognizable figures and heroes. It told the story through the lens and perspective of people just living in it and how they responded to it. And to me, it was incredible. I have been a massive, massive fan of both. Let me highlight them both here again. Where'd she go? Both Octavia Spencer and Viola Davis, both Academy Award winners. Now, seeing them act together on screen was crazy good. They brought such a power and whatever to it. And then you juxtapose them against a character like Bryce Dallas Howard. And I'm speaking just from a personal experience with the movie. There's a moment that really made me uncomfortable in a way that I needed to feel uncomfortable. There's a moment in The Help that made me squirm in my seat a little bit and really feel uncomfortable in a good way. But for those of you who've seen The Help, you know what I'm talking about. So the Bryce Dallas Howard character is, for all intents and purposes, one of the antagonists of the film. She's not a mustache-twirling villain or anything like that, but she's kind of the representation of the things that the characters like Octavia Spencer's character were working against. And what had coming against them was characters like Bryce Dallas Howard. There's a moment in the film where I believe it's the Emma Stone character and the Bryce Dallas Howard character. And the Bryce Dallas Howard character says this, and who is clearly a racist character. But she says, believing that she's saying something caring about the Viola Davis and Octavia Spencer characters, the Bryce Dallas Howard character says, "You don't get it. There are real racists out there who will do this, 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 and this." And it was such a profound moment to me because for me as the audience member, her character was clearly very racist. But in her eyes, she wasn't. There were other people out there who were racist and they're bad people. And it just, I remember the juxtaposition of that whole internal monologue that character is having, the obliviousness that character has to what her actual behavior is versus how she sees and perceives herself in relation to the events going on. I remember me, once again, as a Canadian pasty white Italian dude, sitting there and going, whoa. Like it spoke to, I think, to me, and this is, the great movies make you think. Whatever conclusions you come to, the great movies make you think. And I remember thinking to myself, damn, man, like me, everybody, we all have to be, we should never rest on our laurels. We should always be examining ourselves. Because here's a great example of a person who's carrying some attitudes that probably a lot of us do and don't even realize it. And that was profound to me as well. The bravery of the Octavia Spencer and Viola Davis character. The fact, and you know, some people criticize The Help with the Emma Stone character as, some people criticize it as a white savior movie, but I can only tell you my experience with it. My experience when I was watching the movie was, the message of it was that it's not that Emma Stone's character wasn't the hero of the movie, nor was she the savior. To me, and the reason why I thought it was important to tell the story through that character's observations and what she's seeing around her, to me, the message of the Emma Stone character was that, listen, this isn't just their problem. This isn't just, Octavia Spencer's character's problem. This is a society problem. And for society to change, it's going to take a lot of people in society to step up and help make that change. And so, to me, the message of the Emma Stone character was, don't think you can just sit this out because you don't think this is your issue too. It is. And it's something that we all need to get involved with and get on board with, particularly in that time period, but I think it applies today as well. So it made me re-examine. It made me decide to re-examine my own thought processes, something that I think I still and everybody still needs to do every day. It made me realize that this is not just the problem of one people group. Because when it's affecting one people group, when one group of our culture is badly being hurt, it hurts our whole culture. And it takes people outside of just the one people group being affected to step up as well and join in and join hands. Anyway, that was the message to me. And it was done in such a great way that I just remember I stood outside of that screening room on the movie theater lot, or the studio lot, just taking deep breaths going, I just adored that movie. It was the type of movie that makes me love the movies. So once again, let me just run through these three one more time that I would recommend as somebody who is not an expert in Cuban cuisine. The Help, I Am Not Your Negro, and Remember the Titans. Those, now there are many. I mean, I didn't even mention one of my favorites, Do the Right Thing. We didn't even mention Fruitvale Station. We didn't even mention Loving. There's a lot of great ones, but for me to just keep it relatively short, those are the three that I want to talk about. Let me ask you guys a question. Given today's environment and things that are going on in the world, what would you, if somebody came to you and said, hey, what are three good movies that I should watch that will make me more, or that would encourage more empathy from me? What three movies would those be for you? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right.